So imagine you're just standing on a train platform, right?
Yeah.
And you're just watching this express train completely blast past you. You look up at the departure board, and every single exciting destination just says departed.
Oh, man. That is a terrible feeling.
It really is. That sinking feeling, that absolute certainty that you've somehow just completely missed your window in life. I mean, that is an entirely universal experience.
Absolutely universal, yeah.
So today, we are actively dismantling that too late myth. For this deep dive, our mission is really to unpack that nagging, heavy feeling of, I'm too old, and discover how to actively rewire that mindset.
And we have a fantastic case study today to help us do exactly that.
We do. We're looking at a narrative from the Easy English podcast, and it's titled, It's Never Too Late, Sarah's Story of Growth.
It's just an incredibly useful narrative because it takes this very abstract, intimidating psychological concept, and it really grounds it in a deeply relatable everyday life.
All right.
Like, we aren't looking at some billionaire entrepreneur here. We're looking at a normal person hitting a wall.
Exactly. So let's meet our protagonist. This is Sarah. She's 42 years old, working in a small office right in the center of her city.
Mm-hmm.
And if you looked at Sarah's life from the outside, you'd probably say she's doing great. Her life looks peaceful. She's got a stable job, supportive friends, a really comfortable apartment.
But on the inside, it's a different story.
Completely. On the inside, she's dealing with this hollow feeling that she is just profoundly unfulfilled.
Yeah, she is haunted by the ghost of what her life could have been, and she feels completely paralyzed to change it. That's the core tension we're looking at here.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can understand how Sarah actually changes her life, and spoiler alert, she does manage to do it, we first have to examine the mental trap that was keeping her stuck in this identical, repetitive, daily routine.
Right. We have to look at the baseline.
Exactly.
And that baseline is the definition of a rut. It's comfortable, sure, but it is a trap. I mean, neurologically speaking, she is living on autopilot.
It is absolute clockwork. She wakes up at the exact same time every day. She drinks her coffee.
Yeah.
She goes to work. She comes home, makes dinner, watches television, and goes to bed. Wash, rinse, repeat. Every single day is almost identical to the last.
Which means she isn't encountering anything new.
Right.
So her brain isn't encountering novel stimuli, and therefore she isn't building new neural pathways. But the real friction, like the active damage, that actually happens in the evening.
Oh, the evening doom scroll. Yes, this is where the conflict really lives.
Yeah.
Every evening, Sarah sits on her couch, just scrolling through social media on her phone.
As we all do.
Right. And she sees old classmates traveling the globe. One friend just opened a successful business. Another one wrote a book.
What?
Somebody else is out there learning 3 languages. Another friend just crossed the finish line of a marathon.
And Sarah is a genuinely good person. She smiles for them. But deep inside, the disappointment in herself is just crushing her.
It's like she's watching a highlight reel of everyone else's lives playing on a massive screen, but she is stuck on a treadmill in a dark room.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
She's expending all this intense emotional energy just feeling terrible about herself, but she's not actually moving forward an inch. The scenery never changes.
What's fascinating here is how she internalizes those external observations. She isn't just saying, wow, they accomplished a lot. She whispers to herself, I should have done more.
Right.
And then that thought metastasizes into something much more dangerous. It becomes an absolute statement of fact. She tells herself, I'm too old, or, it's too late now.
People my age don't start over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Once a belief like this takes root, the natural consequence is that a person simply stops trying.
It completely shifts from a passing thought into an identity. But here's my question. Why does that specific belief paralyze us so completely? It's almost like the brain acts a ruthless accountant, right?
Something like that.
If it calculates that the return on investment for a new skill is 0 because you're, quote unquote, too old, it just refuses to fund the project. It cuts off the budget entirely.
That is a perfect analogy. The brain is an energy conservation machine, honed by millions of years of evolution. Trying something new takes an immense amount of metabolic and psychological energy. If your core belief is that success in a new endeavor is impossible because you are too late, well, your brain will simply not allocate the calories required to attempt it.
It just shuts it down.
Right. Trying, when you genuinely believe failure is guaranteed, registers to your nervous system as a dangerous waste of resources. So the trap of comparison doesn't just make you sad, it literally turns off your biological drive to act.
It paralyzes the system entirely. So if the brain's accountant has frozen the budget, how do you overwrite that system? Because breaking out of this paralysis, it doesn't actually require quitting your job, moving to a mountain, and having some dramatic life overhaul.
No, not at all.
You do it by finding a tiny crack in the armor of that limiting belief. It just requires a shift in perspective.
Exactly. You just need a wedge to open the door a fraction of an inch.
Which brings us to a regular Saturday morning for Sarah. She decides to spend a quiet afternoon in a bookstore. And I really love this detail about her journey. She wasn't going there on a mission to change her life.
Right.
She wasn't seeking some self-help miracle. She just wanted to walk between the shelves because the smell of books made her feel calm. She was just looking to decompress.
She was seeking comfort, but she accidentally stumbled into a massive cognitive catalyst.
She wanders into the personal development section, and a title catches her eye. It's a classic. It's called The Magic of Thinking Big by David J. Schwartz.
A great book.
Yeah. She opens it up, and the very first page she reads has this sentence that just completely stops her in her tracks.
Yeah.
The quote is, "The size of your success is determined by the size of your belief."
And she reads it. And then she reads it again. And she just sits quietly with this one question filling her mind, which is, when did I stop believing in myself?
See, here's where it gets really interesting, because I have to push back on this a little bit.
Okay, go for it.
We hear these types of quotes all the time, you know? You see that exact phrase on inspirational posters in dentist offices. Just believe in yourself.
Right, totally.
It sounds like a complete cliche. So how does reading one sentence in a bookstore actually disrupt years of feeling inadequate?
It's a really crucial distinction to make. We have to separate a cliche from a cognitive pivot. The quote didn't magically fix her life. The poster didn't rewire her brain.
Right.
What the narrative shows us is that the quote prompted a crucial, disruptive moment of self-reflection. It wasn't the words themselves, it was the question those words forced her to ask.
Ah, I see.
By asking, when did I stop believing in myself? She acknowledges that the lack of belief is a choice she made at some point in the past.
So it's not an objective biological fact of being 42?
Precisely. It shifts the blame from time, which is an external force she cannot control, to her own internal narrative, which she absolutely can control.
And then she makes an even more profound shift. She starts asking new questions. Instead of declaring, I'm too old, she starts asking, what if my best years are ahead of me?
Yes.
What if I still have time? What if I start today instead of waiting another year?
And this is the vital first step of any genuine transformation. You have to change the internal narrative before you can change any external actions. You have to give your brain's accountant permission to allocate those calories to trying again.
And she does this in the gentlest way possible. She buys the book, she takes it home, and she commits to reading just 10 pages every evening before bed. Nothing more. She doesn't rush it.
It's a small, manageable proof of concept to herself.
Right. So the cognitive pivot is step one. It's a beautiful spark. But a new belief without an execution strategy is really just a delusion, right? A spark burns out if you don't give it fuel. So how do we actually bridge the gap between I can do this and I am doing this? Let's look at how Sarah actually built an architecture, a system to sustain this new mindset.
Because hope without a system is just a wish.
Well said. So a few weeks later, she discovers another book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. And from this, she learns a concept that completely reorients her approach. She realizes that big changes do not come from overnight success.
No, they never do.
They don't come from dramatic transformations. They come from small, consistent habits. She realizes she doesn't need to change her whole life today. She only needs to change today.
The scope of the ambition is narrowed down to just the next 24 hours.
So the following Monday, she implements this architecture. She wakes up just 30 minutes earlier than usual, and instead of grabbing her phone to start the doom scroll, she drinks a glass of water.
Small change, huge impact.
Yeah. She opens a notebook and she writes down 3 goals, and they are incredibly modest. 1, read 10 pages. 2, practice English for 20 minutes. 3, take a walk after dinner.
The list is almost too simple. And that is exactly why it is effective.
You know, we hear the compounding interest metaphor applied to habits all the time, that you're putting pennies in a bank account. But looking at Sarah's routine, it feels less like putting money in a bank and more like carving a new riverbed.
Ooh, I like that.
If you pour a tiny trickle of water, just 20 minutes of English practice, over the same patch of dirt every single day, eventually you carve a groove. The water naturally wants to flow there. Discipline is just the process of digging the trench.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that trench you're talking about is quite literally a neural pathway in the brain. The magic isn't in the specific tasks she chose. The magic is in the consistency.
Right.
What becomes incredibly clear in her journey is a phenomenal realization from the source, which is that discipline is infinitely more reliable than motivation.
Right, and we all know the cliche that discipline beats motivation. But what Sarah's story illustrates is the neurological necessity of that discipline, how removing emotion from execution actually bypasses the brain's natural resistance to change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Motivation is a feeling, and feelings are inherently volatile.
Yeah.
Some mornings, Sarah wakes up feeling energetic and ready to conquer the world. Other mornings, she's exhausted, she's stressed about work, and she just wants to hit snooze. If you rely on how you feel to get things done, you will inevitably fail, because humans simply do not feel good all the time. Relying on motivation is a trap.
I mean, you don't negotiate with yourself about whether you feel motivated to brush your teeth, you just do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Discipline is trusting an algorithm. It's saying, I'm going to read these 10 pages regardless of my emotional state. That is the actual secret to longevity in learning. Taking the emotion out of the execution protects the habit from your own bad days.
So she's got the mindset, she's dug the trench. Now we get to dive into the specific arena where Sarah applies these tools. She decides to conquer a new language, returning to English. This is something she had started years ago. She attended classes for a few months, but then life got busy and she just abandoned it.
Which is another classic trigger for that miss the boat feeling, you know? Picking up a thread you dropped a decade ago.
But she goes in with her new tactical approach. And her exact methods are incredibly practical for anyone listening who wants to learn a language as an adult. She starts with a book called Short Stories in English for Beginners, a teach-yourself book.
Okay.
The key is that the stories are easy enough to enjoy, but challenging enough to push her. And after each chapter, she says a short summary out loud.
Oh, nice.
In an empty room, making mistakes, forgetting words, feeling awkward. But instead of getting frustrated, she just laughs. She reminds herself, every expert was once a beginner.
And she pairs this with a vocabulary book, English Vocabulary in Use. But she fiercely guards her new system. She avoids the trap of trying to do too much.
Right, no overwhelming lists.
Exactly. She doesn't try to memorize hundreds of words. She learns exactly 5 new words a day.
5 words. The riverbed gets a tiny bit deeper.
And what's fascinating here is that limiting it to 5 words isn't just about time management. It's optimal for adult neuroplasticity.
Really?
Yeah. Children's brains are sponges. They passively absorb language. But adult brains are much more rigid. They require higher thresholds of novelty, relevance, and urgency to actually rewire themselves.
That makes a lot of sense.
So Sarah doesn't just memorize definitions. She contextualizes them. She creates her own personal sentences. When she learns the word opportunity, she writes, "Learning English gives me new opportunities." For confidence, she writes, "I want to become more confident when speaking English."
That's a highly strategic move. By attaching her new vocabulary to her immediate, urgent, emotional goals, she's basically tricking her adult brain into caring about the vocabulary. She's hacking her own memory retention.
Precisely. The brain says, oh, this word is relevant to my survival and happiness. I will store it.
And she takes it out into the world. While she's on her daily walks after work, she listens to an audio program, Effortless English. And she's walking through the public park, repeating sentences quietly to herself.
I love that.
People are walking right past her. But she realizes that people are usually too busy thinking about themselves to judge anyone else, which gives her immense freedom.
She is building momentum in a safe, controlled environment.
But you know, it's one thing to build this quiet, safe routine in your bedroom or on a solitary walk where it's just you and your discipline. Language is inherently social.
It is.
At some point, you have to take off the training wheels and actually talk to someone. So how does she navigate that jump? 3 months into this new disciplined life, Sarah joins an online English conversation class, a Zoom group. And this is the real climax of her journey.
It is the ultimate test of everything she has built.
She enters the virtual meeting, the gallery view pops up, and she instantly notices something that makes her stomach drop. Most of the students are significantly younger than she is.
Oh, right.
And in a flash, all those old ghosts come rushing back into the room. I'm too old, they're going to speak better than me, I don't belong here. She literally hovers her mouse over the leave meeting button.
That is so relatable.
Right. So what does this all mean? She built the habits, she dug the trench, she put in the work. But the very second she faces other people, the old insecurities return. Why is the social aspect of learning something new so utterly terrifying?
It's a massive ego threat response. As adults, our identity is almost entirely tied up in our competence. We are experts at our jobs. We know how to navigate our cities. We pay our taxes. We solve problems.
Yeah.
We spend decades building up this armor of competence. When you enter a beginner's classroom at Columbia 2, you have to voluntarily strip away that armor. You are actively choosing to be incompetent in front of a group.
You're fully exposed.
Completely.
Yeah.
And humans are deeply social, tribal creatures. Our fear of social rejection is tied to our evolutionary survival.
Yeah.
Being the weak link in a tribe used to mean you were left behind.
Wow, so it goes that deep.
It does.
Yeah.
So when Sarah sees those younger faces, her brain is cross-referencing her age with our lack of skill and triggering a biological alarm that she is vulnerable to social rejection. It triggers a profound imposter syndrome.
It's the ultimate test of her new belief system. Does she run and protect her ego, or does she stay and endure the vulnerability?
She stays. She combats the fear by actively recalling the architecture she built. She remembers a specific entry she wrote in her journal, "It's never too late to become the person you want to be."
The teacher smiles and asks her to introduce herself. And Sarah takes a deep breath and says, "Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah. I'm 42 years old, and I'm learning English because I want to keep growing."
It's a moment of radical honesty. She names her age, she names her beginner status, and she names her purpose. By naming the elephant in the room, she completely diffuses the ego threat.
And what happens? The room gets quiet, and then everyone smiles.
Yeah.
One student says, "That's inspiring." Another one chimes in and says, "I hope I'm still learning new things when I'm 42.
It's a beautiful realization for Sarah. Our fear of judgment is almost always harsher and much louder than reality. She expected mockery or pity. Instead, they admired her courage. Overcoming this specific social hurdle was the final barrier.
It paves the way for the real-world payoff of her quiet, consistent efforts. Over the next few months, her English improves, her confidence skyrockets. She starts reading articles without translating every other word. She's watching videos with fewer subtitles.
That's huge.
And then comes this wonderful small moment of victory. She's out walking one weekend, and some tourists come up and ask her for directions, and she answers them in English. The whole interaction lasts maybe 2 minutes. But when they walk away, she just cannot stop smiling. Because years ago, she firmly believed that opportunity had passed her by. But standing there on the street, she realizes that the opportunity wasn't gone. It was just waiting for her to begin.
This is a perfect example of a profound psychological shift in what we call her locus of control.
Let's clarify that for a second. Locus of control, meaning she shifted from an external locus, where life just happens to her and opportunities pass her by on a train, to an internal locus, where she genuinely believes her own actions dictate her outcomes.
Precisely. She stopped waiting for the world to offer her a chance, and she started generating her own chances. When you have an internal locus of control, you realize you are the driver, not a passenger.
Which brings us to her 43rd birthday. Exactly 1 year later, she returns to the same bookstore, she walks back to the personal development section, and she finds that same book, The Magic of Thinking Big. And she reflects on the woman she was a year ago, a woman who believed it was too late, a woman who had completely stopped dreaming.
Looking at her case, she barely recognizes that version of herself. And not because she won the lottery or moved to Paris. Her external life, her job, her apartment, they might look very similar.
Right.
But she has changed internally. She thinks differently, she processes challenges differently, and she lives differently.
Because learning has no age. Growth has no age. The only thing that actually limits us is the stubborn belief that it's too late.
This raises an important question for you listening right now. What have you been postponing? What is that thing you've tucked away in a drawer because you told yourself the window closed? Is it learning a language like Sarah? Starting a business? Taking control of your physical health? Finally, traveling?
Because the brutal, beautiful truth is that 1 year from now, you will be 1 year older no matter what you do. Time is going to pass regardless. But 1 year from now, you will either be so deeply glad you started today, or you will be standing in the exact same spot, wishing you had.
The day you think your life is over, or that your chances are spent, might actually be the exact day your new life begins. But you have to take the step.
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, something that really builds on Sarah's story. When we feel too old to start something, we view our age and our past as a massive disadvantage.
We do.
We think we are weighed down by all these years, that we are carrying too much baggage. But what if the very experiences, the failures, the years of routine that make you feel too old are actually the exact unique advantages that will make you successful in this next chapter?
Oh, it's a powerful reframe.
You aren't starting from scratch. You're starting from experience. Sarah's discipline to read 10 pages a day and learn 5 words didn't come from nowhere. It came from the maturity of a 42-year-old woman who knew how to commit to a routine.
Right.
She
Absolutely.
couldn't have done that at 20. You have resilience, patience, and self-knowledge now that you never had when you were younger.
You are fundamentally better equipped to handle the beginner's journey now than you ever were before. The armor of competence you've built isn't a cage, it's a foundation.
Exactly. So the next time you feel like you're standing on that train platform and the express train has blown past you, remember that the station isn't closed. You didn't miss your only chance. You just need to walk up to the ticket counter and book a new journey.
Start with one small step today. 10 pages, 5 words, a glass of water instead of a screen.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep learning, keep questioning those limiting beliefs, and take that one small step today. We'll catch you next time. Have you ever just opened up your social media, started scrolling, and suddenly had this sinking, almost paralyzing thought of like, everyone is succeeding except me?
Oh, absolutely. It's so common.
Right. You see the promotions, the new houses, the graduation photos.
The highlight reels.
Exactly, the highlight reels. And suddenly your own daily efforts just feel, well, totally inadequate.
Yeah, it really hits you hard.
It does. And today we're doing a deep dive into the hidden mechanics of that exact psychological trap. We actually have a really fascinating case study to pull from today.
We do. It's from the Easy English podcast, right?
Yeah, a narrative from them titled, Do You Feel Left Behind? And it tells the story of this 30-year-old guy named Noah.
Which is such a relatable age to hit that wall. I mean, 30 is when those comparisons really start to amplify.
Oh, for sure. So our mission for this deep dive is to deconstruct Noah's journey. Not just, as a nice story, but as a literal blueprint.
Right, because we want to extract the precise cognitive shifts he makes.
Exactly. The behavioral strategies you need to break free from that comparison trap and build, sustainable growth.
Because that feeling of falling behind, it's not just a fleeting emotion.
No, it sticks with you.
It does. It's a highly disruptive cognitive state. When you're constantly bombarded with the end results of other people's invisible labor, it literally rewires your motivation.
Wow. Rewires it.
Yeah, you stop evaluating your own progress and you start evaluating your relative position against this impossible aggregated standard.
Okay, let's unpack this because we need to establish our baseline with Noah first.
Sure, lay it out.
So he's 30, he's working full-time, and he's highly ambitious. He wants to, travel, unlock new career opportunities, meet new people.
So he's got goals.
Big goals. So he spends his evenings studying a new language. He's studying English. He has the intrinsic motivation. He's putting in the work.
Until the scroll happens.
Right, the dreaded evening scroll. He gets on his phone before bed and just gets hit with an absolute avalanche of external milestones from his peers.
Just boom, boom, boom.
Yeah. A friend's promotion, someone bought a beautiful new house, a successful online business launch, a trip to Europe.
A university graduation. It's heavy.
It's so heavy. And we all know social media is a highlight reel. We don't need to rehash that.
Yeah, that's old news.
But what we really need to look at is the behavioral disruptor here. It's like you're sitting in a dark room trying to edit your own really messy behind-the-scenes movie footage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, you are forced to watch everyone else's perfectly polished blockbuster movie trailers.
That is a brilliant analogy.
Thanks. Of course you're going to feel terrible about your footage. And that's what happens to Noah. He genuinely feels happy for them, but privately, he starts doubting himself.
He starts thinking, maybe I'm falling behind.
Exactly. Maybe I started too late.
What's fascinating here is the immediate neurological consequence of that specific thought.
Wait, there's a neurological consequence?
Oh, absolutely. This isn't just Noah feeling a little, melancholic before bed. This comparison actively halts his physical progress.
How so?
Well, when he tells himself he is quote-unquote behind, his brain essentially registers a failure state.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And dopamine, which is the neurochemical driver of our motivation, of our forward action, it just completely crashes.
So the tank is empty.
Precisely. The doubt steals his confidence. And without that chemical drive, his motivation plummets. He skips his reading. He stops practicing his speaking.
He's self-sabotaging.
Exactly. He is actively self-sabotaging, and he is entirely unaware that he's even doing it.
You know, it makes me think of, do you play racing video games?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. So, you know when you do a time trial and the game projects that translucent ghost car on the track?
Oh, yeah, the one that represents the fastest lap time.
Right. So scrolling social media is basically like trying to drive your own messy, totally unpredictable race while you're constantly comparing your speed to this algorithmically generated ghost car.
That represents the combined highlights of like 500 different people.
Exactly. It's flawless. Of course you're going to hit the brakes. You're paralyzed by the perception of an unwinnable race. So Noah just walks off the track.
That ghost car analogy perfectly captures the mechanism at play because he's reacting to an illusion, right?
Right.
He's letting the perception of other people's speed convince him to abandon his own vehicle.
But then we hit this massive paradigm shift.
Thankfully.
Yeah. So Noah takes a physical break from his routine. It's a rainy Saturday. He decides to go to a bookstore, which, by the way, gets him away from the physical environment of his wood, triggers his phone, his bed.
Very smart move.
Yeah. And he picks up this book called The Mountain Is You by Brianna Wiest.
Oh, that's a great book.
It is. And he reads this core premise that our biggest obstacles are often rooted in self-sabotage, that they're driven by fear and doubt and comparison, not an actual lack of capability. But I actually have to push back here a little bit.
Okay, go for it.
Isn't self-sabotage sometimes just a convenient pseudo-psychological excuse for plain old laziness?
Oh, I see where you're going.
Like, is it really that deep, or did the guy just lose his discipline because it got hard?
It is absolutely that deep. And framing it as mere laziness fundamentally misunderstands human behavior.
Really? How so?
Well, laziness is an apathy toward the outcome. You just don't care.
Okay. True.
But self-sabotage is actually an aggressive protection mechanism. Noah isn't apathetic. He cares deeply about learning English.
Right. He was studying every night.
Exactly. But his brain has calculated that trying and failing at 30 feels vastly more painful than simply declaring, oh, I started too late.
Ah, so it's a defense.
Yes. The self-sabotage protects his ego from the vulnerability of being a beginner.
Yeah.
He isn't failing because he lacks the intellectual capacity.
He's failing because his internal narrative got corrupted by the ghost car.
Nailed it.
Wow. So sitting in that bookstore, Noah closes the book and he asks himself a question that just completely upends that corrupted narrative.
What does he ask?
He says, what if I'm not behind? What if I'm simply spending too much time watching other people's journeys instead of living my own?
Oh, that gives me chills. Because by asking that, Noah completely regains his agency.
Right. He takes the steering wheel back.
Up to that exact second, he had accepted his quote-unquote lateness as an empirical metric, like gravity.
Like it was just a fact of physics.
Exactly. But by questioning that base assumption that there is some invisible universal schedule he's violating, he shifts from being a passive victim of circumstance to an active participant in his own life.
A mindset shift like that is just a beautiful thing.
It really is.
But, I mean, a mindset shift is just a theory until Monday morning rolls around.
Right. Reality hits.
Yeah. When you sit back down at your laptop, you still feel that exact same friction. You still get that overwhelming urge to just quit because the mountain looks too steep.
Of course.
So how does he actually implement this without getting immediately overwhelmed again?
Well, he finds the mechanical bridge between theory and practice in another book, Atomic Habits, by James Clear.
Ah, classic.
A total classic. And he zeroes in on one specific methodology from it. Small improvements, repeated every day, create extraordinary results.
Okay.
So he abandons the massive, intimidating goals. Instead, he sets up a highly realistic routine of micro habits.
Like what?
Really small things.
Yeah.
20 minutes of English, reading 10 pages of a book, 30 minutes of exercise.
Okay, that sounds manageable.
Right. Writing down 3 things he's grateful for.
Yeah.
And reducing his social media time.
See, let me stop you right there, though, because I can practically hear our listeners rolling their eyes right now, and honestly, I am too, a little bit.
Uh-oh. Why?
Well, let's look at the English application here. I read the source material. He limits his vocabulary intake to 5 words a day. 5 words.
Yes, 5 words, using a book called English Vocabulary in Use.
If you're a 30-year-old professional trying to advance your career and unlock global travel, learning 5 words a day feels agonizingly, painfully slow.
It sounds like a snail's pace, I know.
It really does. Wouldn't that take literal decades to reach fluency? How does he justify moving that slowly? It honestly sounds like he's just settling for mediocrity to avoid the stress of hard work.
It sounds completely counterintuitive, I'll grant you that. But the neuroscience of learning actually completely validates his approach.
Wait, really? The neuroscience?
Yes. Think about it. If you try to cram 50 abstract words into your brain in one sitting, you are relying entirely on short-term working memory.
Okay.
It's the cognitive equivalent of dumping thousands of unorganized files into a massive deep archive hard drive.
Oh, I hate when my desktop looks like that.
Right. You might technically store those files, but you can't retrieve them when you actually need them in a live conversation. The recall pathways just aren't there.
So how does learning fewer words fix the retrieval problem?
Because of how he processes those 5 specific words. He doesn't just read a list, he forces emotional resonance.
What does that mean?
He takes his 5 words and creates deeply personal, emotionally relevant sentences for each single one.
Give me an example.
So if the word is progress, he doesn't just write a generic sentence. He writes, I am making progress every day.
Oh, okay.
If the word is patient, he writes, I need to be patient with myself.
Ah, okay. So going back to the computer analogy, he isn't just dumping files into deep storage.
Yeah.
He's taking a few highly critical files, putting them right on his desktop and pinning them to his taskbar.
Yes.
He's building immediate high-speed access because the data is actually relevant to his daily operating system.
Exactly. The human brain ruthlessly discards abstract, irrelevant information. It just throws it out.
That explains my high school French.
Exactly. But when you attach emotional resonance and personal utility to a piece of data, it sticks. It moves from passive recognition to active recall.
That makes so much sense.
And he does the exact same thing with his reading. He reads a book called Short Stories in English for Beginners. But the critical step is that he closes the book and he retells the story out loud to himself, actively accepting his broken, imperfect vocabulary.
Which, by the way, is terrifying for a perfectionist.
Oh, it is agonizing. But speaking aloud, even terribly, fires completely different motor and neural pathways than reading silently does.
Interesting.
When you are paralyzed by the comparison trap, you demand instant perfection of yourself because you're comparing your day one efforts to someone else's polished, decade-long mastery.
Back to the ghost car.
Exactly. By accepting the stumble and forcing the words out of his mouth anyway, Noah honors the biological reality of how a brain actually acquires a language.
Sustainability and emotional resonance will beat high-intensity rote memorization every single time.
Every single time.
And he pushes that immersion even further, too. He starts listening to the Effortless English podcast while he's just doing chores or walking or cooking.
Integrating it into his daily life.
Right. He starts repeating phrases. And the friction just starts to vanish. He actually shifts his brain from constantly translating his native language into English to just thinking directly in English.
Which is a massive milestone. If we connect this to the bigger picture, that shift from translation to direct thought wasn't just a neat language trick.
What is it then?
It represents a fundamental rewiring of his cognitive baseline. He removed the anxiety, which lowered his affective filter.
What's an affective filter?
It's the psychological wall that blocks learning when we are stressed or anxious. By treating the learning as a sustainable, integrated part of his life, rather than a frantic race to catch up, his brain finally felt safe enough to actually absorb the material.
Okay, so Noah's internal mechanics are running smoothly now. His micro habits are locked in.
He's doing the work.
But, I mean, he doesn't live in a vacuum. He still has to go to work. He still sees his peers launching businesses and traveling on social media.
Sure.
How does he construct a permanent defense against all that external noise?
Well, this brings us to a really pivotal interaction he has with his grandfather.
Oh, I love this part.
It's a Sunday afternoon. They're sitting out in the grandfather's garden. And Noah finally confesses that lingering, toxic thought. He says, I still think everyone is ahead of me.
And the grandfather, he points to the garden. He points to this towering, massive tree and then to a much smaller tree nearby.
Right.
And he asks Noah which one is better, and Noah naturally says, well, they're both beautiful.
And then the grandfather delivers the wisdom. He tells him, the taller tree was simply planted years before the other. The smaller tree isn't failing, It's simply growing according to its own season.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Think about the variables of a tree.
Okay, I'm with you.
You have soil composition, you have the specific amount of sunlight that hits that exact patch of dirt, the water drainage, the specific species of the seed itself.
So many variables.
Right. You would never walk into a forest, point to a tiny oak sapling, and scream at it for being behind schedule compared to a 100-year-old redwood.
That would be absurd.
It defies basic logic. Yet when it comes to human beings, creatures with infinitely more complex variables regarding our upbringing, our neurochemistry, our resources, our traumas, we somehow convince ourselves that we are all supposed to hit the exact same milestones at the exact same age.
We do. We artificially collapse all those diverse human variables into a single, terrifying timeline.
It's madness.
It is. But by internalizing the reality of his own unique variables through that garden metaphor, Noah performs the ultimate cognitive reframe.
What does he do?
He completely deletes the question, am I ahead or behind? He replaces it with, am I improving?
And that is the crux of it, isn't it? Because am I ahead or behind is an external metric.
Right.
It requires you to constantly survey the landscape, look at the ghost cars, and judge your speed against factors you have zero control over.
While am I improving is a purely internal metric.
It requires an audience of one.
Exactly. And that internal metric allows the dopamine system to function correctly again.
Because he's actually winning his own race now.
Exactly. Now, finishing a short story is a neurochemical win. Learning those 5 personal words is a win. He can actually celebrate his own steps because he's no longer diluting his victories by comparing them to someone else's finish line.
So what does this all mean practically when you take that internal metric and throw it back into a social setting?
Oh, that's the real test.
Because meditating in a garden with your grandfather is easy. Maintaining that zen when you are surrounded by your peers is the real challenge.
And we actually get to see exactly how that plays out.
How so?
A few months later, Noah joins an online English conversation club.
Okay.
And it is a highly mixed environment. Some people are completely fluent. Others are absolute beginners struggling to even form a basic sentence.
Which, let's be honest, a year ago would have been his absolute worst nightmare.
Oh, 100%.
He would have logged into that chat, heard a fluent speaker, immediately triggered his I'm behind failure state, and probably never logged back in.
Precisely. It would have been a trigger-rich environment for his self-sabotage. But because he has fully adopted that internal metric of, am I improving, the external threat is just neutralized.
Wow.
When he hears a fluent speaker now, he doesn't see a ghost car he has to beat. He just sees a tree that was planted earlier.
And this totally changes how he treats the people around him, too.
How so?
Well, he listens to the fluent speakers to learn, but he also actively encourages the beginners. When someone stumbles over a word and nobody laughs or judges, they just smile and keep the conversation moving.
That's a great environment.
Yeah, he realizes that everyone in that room is dealing with their own friction.
You know, this raises an important question about the nature of judgment itself. We often judge others harshly because we are actually projecting our own brutal internal standards outward.
Oh, that's so true.
When Noah removed the intense, hypercritical judgment of his own timeline, he naturally stopped judging everyone else's.
By giving himself permission to be a work in progress, he created a psychological environment where everyone else was allowed to be a work in progress, too.
Beautifully said. And the ultimate proof of this entire shift is in his journaling.
Oh, right, the one-year check-in.
Yes. Fast forward a full year from when he started his microhabits. He opens his journal and reads his entry from day 1. It says, I think everyone is ahead of me.
And how does he react?
He just smiles at it. Then he writes the entry for today. Today I had a 30-minute conversation in English. Today I finished another book. Today I feel grateful for my progress.
That is incredible.
What is vital to note here is what the source material does not say.
What do you mean?
It doesn't say Noah magically became a billionaire. It doesn't say he traveled to 50 countries or achieved every single ambition he ever had overnight.
Right, he didn't suddenly win the lottery of life.
Exactly. His life is still a messy, ongoing process. The difference is solely in the metric of measurement. He has successfully insulated his self-worth from external highlight reels.
He became his own benchmark. The only person he needs to outpace is the Noah from yesterday.
Exactly.
Because life is not a race. There is no universal timeline. Whether you achieve a major breakthrough at 25, or switch careers entirely at 45, or discover your true passion at 60, the mechanics of growth remain exactly the same.
Your journey belongs entirely to you. It's governed by your own unique variables and your own daily actions.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to echo the challenge from today's case study and ask you directly as you listen to this, who is your ghost car?
That's a great question.
Who is that person on your feed or in your office or maybe even in your own family whose highlight reel constantly makes you feel like you are failing?
We all have one.
We do. And what would happen if, starting today, you completely deleted the concept of behind from your vocabulary? What if you just focused on your own 5 words, your own 20 minutes, your own daily progress?
Because you are not behind. You are not too late. You're exactly where your current season requires you to be.
But I want to leave you with one final, maybe slightly more provocative thought to chew on before we go.
Okay, let's hear it.
We've talked a lot about ignoring other people's highlight reels and focusing on your own tree, right?
Right.
But if external comparison is the primary behavioral disruptor that breaks our motivation, could we reverse engineer it?
What do you mean?
What if the ultimate life hack isn't just trying to block out other people's success, but actively, aggressively curating your inputs so you only see the messy, failing, behind-the-scenes reality of your heroes?
Oh, wow.
Because maybe the real problem isn't that human beings are wired to compare ourselves to others. Maybe the tragedy is that we are constantly comparing our actual physical reality to digital ghosts that don't even exist.
That is a profound thought.
Think about that the next time you feel the urge to scroll. Curate your reality. Keep taking those incredibly small steps and keep watering your own garden. Until next time.
Imagine for a second that you're trying to learn how to swim.
Okay.
But instead of going to like your local community pool, standing in the shallow end and just practicing blowing bubbles, you refuse to get into the water until you are standing right on the edge of Niagara Falls.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's intense.
Right. And you tell yourself, I can't practice swimming until the environment is absolutely epic. Like, I need the ultimate challenge.
I mean, that just sounds completely ridiculous.
Exactly. You wouldn't learn to swim. You would literally drown.
It's a guaranteed recipe for failure. You're putting maximum environmental pressure on yourself before you've even mastered the basic mechanics.
Yeah.
And yet, metaphorically speaking anyway, that is exactly how the vast majority of us approach learning something new.
Which brings us perfectly to today's deep dive. Welcome, everyone. We are so thrilled to have you with us. Today, we're analyzing a really fascinating transcript from the Easy English podcast.
Yeah, it's a great one.
It is. The text is specifically titled, How to Talk About Your Peaceful Day in English. And our mission today is to, well, extract a highly counterintuitive idea hidden right inside this lesson.
Right, because it's not just about language.
Exactly. We're exploring how slowing down and deliberately focusing on the quiet, mundane, everyday moments of your life isn't just like a nice self-care strategy.
Yeah.
It's actually a secret weapon. A secret weapon for mastering new skills, improving memory retention, and honestly, just becoming a fundamentally better storyteller.
And I think it is crucial to set the stage right up front here. The source material we are diving into is, specifically designed for people learning a new language.
Right.
But the underlying mechanics of how our brains absorb information, they're completely universal.
Absolutely.
Whether you're an overwhelmed learner trying to pick up a new coding language, or maybe trying to master a musical instrument, or just frankly trying to retain complex data for your job in a hyper-distracted world, the psychological barriers to entry are identical.
So to explore those barriers, the text introduces us to a learner named Emma.
Ah, yes, Emma.
Yeah, so Emma works a really demanding Monday to Friday office job. Every evening she comes home and she hits the books to study English.
Right.
She has a genuine desire to learn, but she has hit this massive cognitive wall. She is just utterly exhausted, and the words just aren't sticking anymore.
And her baseline reality is just the classic modern grind, right?
Oh, completely.
Like, she wakes up to a blaring alarm, immediately checks her phone before she even sits up in bed.
Guilty.
Right, we all do it. She triages overflowing emails, rushes through breakfast, and then spends, 8 to 10 hours just staring at a computer screen?
Yeah, it's brutal.
By the time she sits down to actually study, her brain is essentially a drained battery.
Phone screen, computer screen, TV screen, study screen, rinse and repeat. But her exhaustion isn't just from the screen time.
No, it's not.
She is operating under a massive misconception about what it actually takes to practice a skill. The text points out a core myth, which is the belief that to have a worthwhile conversation in a new language, you need these exciting stories.
Right, like you need to be an adventurer.
Exactly. You need to have traveled to exotic places, met fascinating people, or survived some grand adventure.
Which is just so common.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we treat learning, Or honestly, even just sharing a story with a friend like it's an extreme sport.
Yeah.
We act as if you need to, I don't know, jump out of an airplane just to earn the right to step onto the playing field. We tell ourselves our normal daily lives just aren't interesting enough to warrant discussion.
Wow, yeah.
And by waiting for that grand vacation or the dramatic life event to finally start practicing, we are aggressively gatekeeping our own progress.
What's fascinating here is how this mindset creates an impossible psychological barrier. I mean, if you wait for extraordinary moments to deploy a skill, you guarantee that you will rarely, if ever, actually practice it.
Because extraordinary moments are rare by definition.
Exactly. But there's a deeper physiological issue happening with Emma, too. The constant rushing and the screen fatigue actively block cognitive absorption.
Okay, how so?
Well, we have to look at the neuroscience of burnout. When your nervous system is in a constant state of low-grade fight or flight, triggered by sudden alarms, stressful commutes, endless inbox notifications, your body is just pumping cortisol.
Right.
And high levels of cortisol severely impair the hippocampus, which is, the part of the brain responsible for forming new memories.
So you physically cannot absorb the nuance of a new language or any complex info when your brain thinks it needs to be scanning the horizon for a predator.
Yes. You are in survival mode, not learning mode. You're trying to build a delicate house of cards on a table that is constantly shaking.
That's such a good way to put it. So Emma is mentally exhausted by this whole cycle of high expectations and high stress. And she reaches a breaking point on a Friday evening.
I think we've all been there.
Totally. She's sitting on her sofa, and she realizes she has spent the entire week just processing urgent inputs and staring at glowing rectangles.
Right.
So she makes a deliberate, radical choice to break the pattern. She decides to orchestrate one completely peaceful, slow day.
And this Saturday shift is where we move from the problem into the underlying principles of microlearning.
Yeah, she designs a morning explicitly meant to lower that cortisol level. She wakes up naturally without an alarm. She ignores her phone.
Master step.
Huge.
Yeah.
She opens the curtains, lets the fresh air in, makes a warm cup of tea, and simply sits by the window watching people walk their dogs.
She is shifting out of the extraordinary trap and tuning into her immediate environment.
Exactly.
She's taking control of her internal state. By deliberately removing all that digital noise, she forces her brain out of that defensive survival state and into a highly receptive state.
Right.
She basically creates the physiological conditions required for neuroplasticity.
And during this quiet window, she picks up a book mentioned in the text. It's called The Little Book of Hygge by Mick Wicking.
Oh, Hag, yeah.
Yeah. For those unfamiliar, Hygge is the Danish concept of cozy contentment. The philosophy argues that deep satisfaction doesn't come from massive achievements or, expensive vacations. It comes from deeply experiencing simple things.
Like lighting a candle.
Exactly. Or the feeling of warm mug on a rainy afternoon.
And Emma realizes she has been waiting for these massive cinematic moments to feel worthy of practicing her English. She's been completely overlooking the fact that the ordinary moments are universally relatable and, more importantly, they are accessible immediately.
So she applies this Hygge philosophy directly to her study habits. And the text describes this massive shift in her approach.
Okay.
Instead of trying to cram 3 chapters of reading into her morning, she opens short stories in English for beginners and reads one single story.
Just one.
Just one, slowly. Then she opens her vocabulary workbook, and instead of trying to memorize a list of 50 words, she chooses exactly 5.
Wait, just 5?
Just 5 new words. And she creates sentences strictly about her immediate real-world morning. Sentences like, the weather is pleasant, or I feel relaxed today.
Yeah.
But I have to jump in and play devil's advocate here, because as a learner, this triggers major anxiety for me.
Really? How come?
Just 5 words. I mean, if I need a vocabulary of 10,000 words to become fluent in a language, or if I need to master hundreds of functions in a new coding language, learning 5 things a day feels painfully slow.
I can see that.
At that pace, it feels like I'm guaranteeing I will be a beginner forever. Doesn't this Hygge method just encourage complacency?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the math of traditional cramming is actually an illusion.
An illusion.
Yeah, it comes down to the science of relevance and cognitive load. Think about the standard method. We try to force 50 random vocabulary words into our short-term memory through sheer repetition and flashcards.
Right, you just drill them.
But human memory is associative. If you try to memorize a list of disjointed words like apple, train, democracy, blue, the brain discards the vast majority of it within hours.
because it doesn't mean anything.
Exactly. The data lacks semantic network. It has no context to latch onto.
It's just random data floating in a void.
But look at what Emma is doing. We can call it contextual anchoring. She is taking those 5 specific words and anchoring them directly to her immediate, real-world emotional state.
Oh, interesting.
She is physically feeling a sense of cozy relaxation in her apartment, looking at a pleasant morning out her window. When she attaches the new vocabulary word, pleasant, to the actual lived feeling of pleasantness in her body, the brain wires that connection instantly.
Wow.
Because the context is rich, emotional, and highly relevant to her present reality, the retention rate skyrockets. Quality of context dramatically outperforms the sheer volume of flashcards.
That makes so much sense. It's the difference between trying to memorize the dictionary definition of the word blizzard while sitting in a warm classroom versus actually stepping out into a snowstorm and feeling the freezing wind hit your face while someone teaches you the word.
Yes, exactly.
Your body remembers the blizzard. The dictionary definition fades, but the physical experience creates a permanent anchor.
And by limiting herself to just 5 words, she protects her cognitive bandwidth. She isn't overwhelming her working memory, which means she actually has the processing power to observe how the grammar works, how the syntax flows, and how the words feel to say out loud.
So she trades the illusion of fast progress for actual permanent mastery.
Precisely.
Now, we know this microdosing of information works beautifully in a controlled environment like a quiet apartment. But languages, and really any skills, are meant to be used in the unpredictable real world.
Right.
How do you maintain that low cognitive load when you step outside the Higgs bubble?
Yeah.
Well, Emma decides to test this. She takes her newfound calm out into her neighborhood for an afternoon trip to the park.
Okay.
And there's a very specific, deliberate choice she makes before walking out the door.
She leaves her headphones behind.
Yes. And honestly, this struck me as the most difficult step in the entire story.
Oh, absolutely.
We use headphones as a shield. When we're stressed or overwhelmed, we plug our ears to block out the unpredictable noise of the world. Taking them off is a vulnerable shift. Emma is moving from actively blocking her environment to actively perceiving it.
And the text highlights a profound realization she has while sitting on a park bench. She's just observing the breeze, listening to children laughing, watching a small stream.
Yeah.
And she realizes peace isn't something we find, it's something we notice.
That reframes the entire concept of relaxation.
That really does.
We treat peace like a geographic destination, like we think it's a beach in Bali or a secluded cabin in the woods. But it's actually a mode of perception. It's an active state of observation that you can switch on anywhere, even on a municipal park bench.
And in the context of learning, that active state of observation is the ultimate receptive mode. In linguistics, there is a concept known as the affective filter.
The affective filter.
Yeah. When a learner is anxious, self-conscious, or stressed, this invisible psychological filter goes up, and it actively prevents comprehensive input from being processed.
Wow.
By noticing the peace around her, Emma is forcefully lowering her affective filter.
So sitting on that bench with her filter lowered, she engages in incredibly low-stakes practice. She listens to a short audio lesson and just repeats the sentences quietly to herself.
No pressure.
Exactly. She isn't performing for a grade. She isn't worried about perfect grammar. She's just speaking into the open air. But the real-world test happens on her walk home.
Okay, what happens?
She stops at a local cafe to grab a coffee. The barista smiles at her and simply says, "Beautiful day, isn't it?"
A classic small talk moment.
Right. And Emma replies with genuine confidence, "Yes, it's wonderful. I decided to spend today enjoying the simple things." The barista agrees, and that's the end of the interaction.
That's it.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because objectively, this interaction is incredibly short. It lasts maybe 15 seconds. But for Emma, the confidence boost is monumental.
I can imagine.
It reminds me of the life of a stage actor. Imagine you are an actor, and you've been rehearsing a complex monologue alone in your living room for 6 months.
Right.
You know the words backwards and forwards, but in that isolated room, the words feel empty. There's no energy. Then finally, you step onto an actual stage with real lights, looking at a real audience, and you deliver just one line.
Yeah, that changes everything.
Just hitting that one mark, connecting with a real human being in real time, validates all the quiet and visible work you did behind the scenes. It's a tiny moment, but it completely rewires your belief in your own competence.
And the brevity of the interaction is exactly why it was successful. She didn't try to impress the barista with a complex, rehearsed speech about her life goals.
Right.
Notice what happens when you remove the pressure to be perfect. The text points out that her pronunciation smoothed out effortlessly.
Why does that happen?
Well, when we try to force fluency while stressed, the physical muscles in our jaw and vocal cords literally tense up. We stumble.
Oh, that makes sense.
By shifting from the stressed, passive consumption of a textbook to relaxed, active participation in her actual life, the learning integrated seamlessly. She didn't have to pause and translate in her head. She simply responded to an environment she was already deeply connected to.
She wasn't digging through her mental archives for the perfect vocabulary word. She was just agreeing that the day was beautiful. She was completely present.
And she has proven the model works in isolation, and she's proven it works in a brief, low-stakes encounter with a stranger.
Yeah.
But the ultimate test of this ordinary approach is the arena where the extraordinary trap usually dominates, a group setting where she is expected to perform.
Yes. So the following week, Emma is sitting in her evening English class.
Okay.
The teacher gives the room a prompt, asking the students, can anyone describe a peaceful day?
Uh-oh.
Exactly. Immediately, the trap springs shut. The other students start boasting. They launch into stories about dramatic beach holidays, sweeping mountain climbing trips, and grand, expensive vacations.
They're trying to show off.
They are frantically digging for the most impressive, complex vocabulary they can muster.
Because they're operating under the assumption that the value of their language skills and the value of their personal story is entirely dependent on the prestige of the event they are describing.
Right.
It is basically an arms race of interestingness.
Well, Emma raises her hand, and instead of joining the arms race, she simply describes her quiet Saturday.
Oh, I love this.
She talks about waking up to the sun, making a warm cup of tea, noticing the dogs in the park, reading her book, and having that 15-second chat at the cafe.
Just the truth.
Just the truth. She uses the simple vocabulary she anchored to her emotions. She tells the truth about a completely ordinary day, and the room falls dead silent.
Wow.
Everyone is actively listening. When she finishes, the teacher smiles and says, that wasn't just good English. It was a beautiful story.
That is so powerful.
So what does this all mean? I really want to drill down into the psychology of that classroom. Why was a room full of people who were just moments ago trying to outdo each other with adrenaline-fueled mountain climbing stories suddenly so captivated by a story where absolutely nothing exciting happened?
This raises an important question about the fundamental purpose of communication.
Okay.
Why do we bother telling stories in the first place, whether in our native tongue or a new one? We do it to build human connection. And in the pursuit of connection, authenticity always wins over spectacle. A checklist of exotic tourist destinations is actually quite alienating.
Because it's hard to relate to.
Exactly. Unless the listener has also been to that specific mountain peak or that specific luxury resort, they cannot relate to the experience. It doesn't invite them in. It just serves as a status update.
It's the verbal equivalent of scrolling through an influencer's heavily filtered social media feed.
Yes.
It looks shiny, but it doesn't make you feel anything. It pushes you away.
But universal, simple pleasures create an immediate, visceral, emotional resonance. Everyone in that classroom has felt the desperate relief of a quiet morning after a stressful week.
Oh, absolutely.
Everyone knows the physical sensation of a warm cup of coffee in their hands. Everyone has felt the breeze on their face.
Yeah.
Emma's story bypassed the superficial need to impress the room and went straight to the core of a shared human experience.
And from that, she realizes she never needs to search for the perfect topic again, because her own daily life is already overflowing with stories.
Exactly.
She turns this insight into a daily framework. Let's call it microfluency. Every evening, instead of exhausting herself with heavy textbooks, she spends just 5 minutes speaking out loud about her ordinary day.
Just 5 minutes.
The meal she prepared, the subtle changes in the weather, a single thought she had while reading a book.
Because practicing the vocabulary of your actual daily routine is infinitely more useful for long-term retention than learning the niche vocabulary required to, I don't know, rent a jet ski on a tropical vacation.
That is so true.
You navigate your kitchen, your commute, and your quiet thoughts every single day. You only rent the jet ski once a decade. But we heavily prioritize the vocabulary of the rare over the vocabulary of the daily.
And that misalignment is exactly why we freeze up in real conversations. We know how to ask for directions to the Eiffel Tower, but we don't know how to explain that we're feeling a little overwhelmed on a Tuesday morning.
Exactly. Emma's daily 5-minute habit builds an unshakable foundation because it is anchored in reality.
Right.
Every time she articulates a normal experience, she is reinforcing the neural pathways with familiar context, while simultaneously reminding herself that her daily life has inherent value.
Let's bring all of these concepts together for you, the listener. If you are feeling completely overwhelmed by whatever it is you are trying to learn right now, whether you are tackling a new language, wrestling with a complex software program, or just trying to absorb the dense reading material required for your career, remember the mechanics of Emma Saturday.
It's so important.
True mastery of a subject does not require grand adventures. And it certainly does not require crushing, burnout-inducing workloads.
No, it doesn't.
Pushing yourself into a state of chronic stress actively shuts down your brain's ability to retain information.
Your everyday experiences are the optimal practice ground. They provide the perfect low-stakes environment to test new skills.
Yeah.
Because these moments are deeply personal and meaningful, and because you are physiologically relaxed, your affective filter is lowered, your brain is open, making the information stick faster and longer than any forced memorization drill.
Every small concept you grasp in a moment of quiet observation, every simple sentence you construct about your real life builds an undeniable foundation of confidence. The ordinary, mundane moments aren't a distraction from your learning. They are the strongest building blocks for lasting fluency.
Truly.
So we want to issue a direct challenge to you. Think about the single most peaceful moment you experienced in the last week. Just scan back over the last few days.
Just one moment.
Was it eating breakfast in silence before the house woke up? Was it taking a quick walk to the mailbox and noticing the temperature drop? Maybe it was just watching the rain hit the window glass for 2 minutes between meetings.
Any of those work.
Whatever that specific moment was, try describing it using the new skill you are learning. If you're learning a language, describe the rain in that language. If you're learning to write code, think about how you would structure the logic of that simple routine.
Keep it simple.
Don't worry about complexity. Just focus on articulating the simple truth of the moment.
And to leave you with one final thought to mull over as we wrap up our analysis today, we expend an unbelievable amount of energy stressing over how to communicate our big, impressive achievements to the world.
Oh, absolutely.
We curate our highlight reels. But if we spend our entire lives holding our breath, waiting for those rare, extraordinary experiences just so we can finally feel like we have a story worth sharing, are we actually losing our fluency in experiencing the everyday life that makes up 99% of our existence?
Wow. If you lose the ability to describe the simple things, you miss out on almost your entire life. You do not need to summit Mount Everest to prove that you know how to walk.
Exactly.
Sometimes the most radical breakthrough you can make is just taking a quiet stroll through the park, leaving your headphones at home, and finally noticing the world around you. Thanks for diving deep with us today. We will catch you on the next one.
Welcome to today's deep dive. You know, what if the reason you can't seem to master that new language or learn that new instrument or even nail that new software at work, what if it has absolutely nothing to do with your study habits?
Right, which is completely counterintuitive to how we're usually taught to learn.
Exactly. I mean, today's mission is really looking at this hidden soundtrack playing in your head while you learn. We're examining an audio source from an English learning program, and it actually unlocks this universal truth about how humans acquire basically any new skill.
Yeah, and it's a dynamic we see across almost every field of human performance. The source material is a narrative episode called The Power of Positivity, Fluency Through Mindset.
Such a good title.
It really is. And it centers on this fascinating case study of a learner named Lily. But, I mean, while her specific goal is language fluency, our focus today is broader. We're looking at how our internal monologue literally dictates our external success.
Yeah, because when you think about acquiring a new skill, it's so tempting to treat it like building a house, you know?
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right. Like you naturally obsess over the tangible materials, the grammar rules, the vocabulary, maybe the coding syntax if you're in tech. Those are your bricks.
Your building blocks. Yeah.
And you spend all this time trying to stack those bricks perfectly. But if we only focus on the bricks, we're completely ignoring the concrete foundation. Your mindset, that quiet conversation you have with yourself every single day, that's the foundation.
And if that foundation is cracked, right, if it's shifting around.
It doesn't matter how premium your bricks are. That house is coming down.
Totally. Which brings us directly to Lily's situation, because to understand how to fix the foundation, we kind of first have to see what a cracked one looks like in practice.
Right, so let's introduce Lily.
So Lily is a 28-year-old customer service rep, and she is incredibly ambitious. She wants a management promotion. She wants to travel internationally. And the gatekeeper to all of those goals is English fluency.
So the stakes are high for her.
Very high. And she is putting in the hours. I mean, every night after work, she's at her desk doing grammar drills, reviewing flashcards, watching instructional videos.
So she has the discipline down cold.
She does. But there is this invisible barrier. While she's, highlighting her textbooks, she has this quiet, persistent soundtrack playing in the background.
The cracked foundation.
Exactly. Whenever she stumbles on a pronunciation, she quietly mutters, "I'm terrible at English." When she forgets a word, it's always, "Everyone else learns faster than I do."
Oh, wow. So she's meticulously studying the language, but she's simultaneously practicing her own failure.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. And that internal practice culminates in a very specific, very painful breakdown for her.
Oh, no. When does this happen?
It happens on a Monday morning during an online conversation class. The instructor turns to Lily and asks this incredibly basic, completely predictable question. They ask, "What did you do last weekend?"
Wait, really? That's week 1 stuff.
I know it is. She even knew the question was coming. She had mentally rehearsed her answer before logging on. But the moment the spotlight hits her, she completely freezes.
Like a deer in headlights.
Literally. Her mind just goes blank. She starts stuttering, profusely apologizing, saying, "I'm sorry, my English isn't very good."
Oh, that is so rough.
The teacher tries to gently coax her through it, but the psychological damage for the day is already done. On the bus ride home, she is just drowning in intense embarrassment, replaying every single error on an endless loop.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second, though, because freezing up on a basic question like, "What did you do last weekend?" I mean, that really sounds like a fundamental gap in her training, doesn't it?
You think so, yeah.
Because the traditional advice here is just, well, study harder. Like, is grammar really secondary to mindset? Shouldn't she just drill those past tense verbs until they're muscle memory? It's like she's trying to run a marathon, but she's wearing a backpack full of rocks. And the rocks are her negative thoughts. But still, shouldn't she just train harder?
What's fascinating here is that it's not actually a storage problem. It's a retrieval problem. In linguistics, there's a concept called the affective filter.
The affective filter. Okay.
Yeah, think of it as an invisible psychological shield. When a learner experiences high anxiety or stress or just a lack of self-confidence, this filter goes up and literally blocks the brain's ability to process or retrieve the language.
Wait, really? It physically blocks it?
Neurologically, yes. Her brain has the vocabulary filed away, but the anxiety triggers the amygdala, which is the brain's threat detection center.
Ah, so her brain is treating a simple conversation class like she's suddenly being chased by a bear or something.
Precisely. The amygdala hijacks the prefrontal cortex, which is where complex thought and memory retrieval happen.
Okay, so when you constantly tell yourself you're terrible at something.
You're actively programming your brain to perceive performance as a high-stakes threat. The cognitive load of constantly judging yourself leaves almost zero processing power for actually forming a sentence.
Right. It's like she's trying to run a really high-demand app on her smartphone, like a heavy video editing program, but her phone's battery is draining incredibly fast because she has 50 background apps open.
Exactly.
And those background apps are just constantly calculating her insecurities. So the language app isn't broken. She just has no processing power left to run it.
That is a perfect way to look at it. And notice what happens after the class. Her brain filters her memory of the event to match her negative internal narrative.
Oh, because she only remembers the mistakes on the bus ride home.
Right. She remembers every mistake vividly, but she completely forgets any sentence she actually got right. She's basically experiencing confirmation bias against herself.
Man, that is a heavy backpack of rocks.
Yeah.
And recognizing the problem is one thing, but figuring out how to take the backpack off, that requires a complete shift in perspective.
Which brings us to a quiet Saturday afternoon in a bookstore.
Right, so she's not even looking for study materials, right?
No, she's just browsing, trying to decompress. And she pulls this book off the shelf that radically shifts her entire paradigm. It's The Happiness Advantage by Shawn Achor.
Oh, I know that one.
Yeah.
He's a well-known researcher in positive psychology.
Yeah, exactly. She opens to the first chapter, and a specific quote just stops her dead in her tracks.
Let me guess. Success doesn't create happiness. happiness helps create success.
The one.
See, okay, I really have to question this logic deeply, though. Logically, doesn't it go the other way around?
How do you mean?
I mean, that sounds great on a motivational poster, sure. But functionally, shouldn't we be happy only once we achieve the goal? Like, shouldn't she only feel confident when she can speak perfectly without making grammatical errors?
And that assumption right there is exactly what keeps so many learners trapped.
Really?
Yeah. We tell ourselves, I'll be confident when I finally start making mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
But human communication is never perfectly flawless, especially not in a second language.
I guess that's true. Even native speakers mess up all the time.
Exactly. If you tie your confidence to perfection, you've created a moving goalpost. You guarantee you'll never actually feel confident.
And if you never feel confident, your affective filter stays up.
Right. And your brain stays stuck in that survival mode. The source's definition of positivity here is crucial. It isn't about ignoring problems or pretending life is perfect.
It's not toxic positivity.
No, not at all. True positivity here means viewing every challenge as a learning opportunity. It's fundamentally redefining your relationship with failure.
So by waiting for perfection to grant herself permission to be confident, she was actively blocking the mental state she needed to learn in the first place.
That's the trap. But a profound realization in a bookstore is basically useless without a practical system to actually implement it.
Right, you can't just think your way into a new mindset. You have to act your way into it. So this leads directly into the specific daily routines Lily creates to rewire her brain.
And this is where the theory becomes highly actionable. She implements 4 specific micro-habits to build her fluency through practice, not perfection.
Okay, let's break these down. The first one is a new morning routine, right?
Yeah. Before she even looks at her phone, she writes out 3 positive sentences in a notebook. Things like, I am improving every day. Mistakes help me learn, and today I will speak English with confidence.
And the case study notes how awkward this is for her at first. Like, she's writing it, but she totally doesn't believe it yet.
Which is completely normal neurologically. When you introduce a positive narrative that contradicts a deeply held negative belief, your brain experiences cognitive dissonance.
It rejects it.
Exactly. But by forcing herself to write it and read it out loud every single morning, she's using repetition to carve a new neural pathway.
Okay, so that's habit 1. Habit 2 is about how she reads. She starts using short stories in English for beginners.
Right. But instead of rushing through, she slows way down. She imagines the characters, and then after every chapter, she forces herself to summarize the story out loud.
To an empty room.
Yep. And here's the key. When she inevitably messes up, she doesn't berate herself. She actively laughs at her own mistakes.
Wow, it's like exposure therapy for making errors.
Exactly. She's desensitizing herself to the panic of making a mistake.
Okay, but then we get to habit 3, which is her vocabulary practice. And I'm going to push back on this one.
Oh.
Yeah. So she uses English vocabulary in use, but she strictly limits herself to exactly 5 new words a day.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, only 5 words a day? For a 28-year-old trying to get a major promotion, isn't that far too slow? Like, why artificially bottleneck your progress when you could use flashcards to learn 50 words?
Because cramming 50 words relies entirely on shallow rote memorization. It sits in your short-term memory and then just evaporates.
But still, 5 words.
Think about what happens when a learner feels overwhelmed by a massive list.
Mm.
The negative self-talk creeps right back in. This is too hard. I'll never remember all this.
I see.
By restricting it to just 5 words, she completely eliminates the friction and the overwhelm that fuels her negative self-talk.
It's like she's microdosing her learning, choosing deep personal resonance over just shallow volume.
Exactly, because she doesn't just memorize the definition. She writes sentences tying those 5 words to deep personal emotions.
Like what?
Like, she'll create a sentence about her gratitude for her family or a childhood memory.
Mm.
By doing this, she bypasses rote memorization and anchors the knowledge in her own life.
Okay, that makes sense. It increases retention because it actually matters to her.
Exactly. It creates multiple neural connection points for a single word.
And then the 4th habit is her listening practice. She uses effortless English and she just shadows the rhythm constantly.
Right. Walking, cooking, doing laundry. She mimics the intonation until it's muscle memory. Eventually, she hits that classic milestone.
She starts dreaming in the language.
Yes. That's when you know the new operating system is deeply embedded.
And what's so amazing is that as Lily's internal systems change, it begins to leak into her external world, shifting how she interacts with everyone else.
It really does. There's this wonderful unscripted moment at a cafe.
Oh, right, with the barista.
Yeah, the barista notices her changed demeanor and just casually points out this crucial human flaw. He says, we're usually kinder to strangers than we are to ourselves.
Which is so true. It's a huge blind spot.
Totally. And Lily takes that realization and applies it directly to her online conversation club.
Right. Before, she was ruthlessly judging herself. But now, when she sees her peers struggling, she smiles and tells them, take your time.
And notice the ripple effect there. By encouraging others, she's actively building her own confidence. Verbally expressing patience to them reinforces it in her own brain.
It reminds me so much of the oxygen mask principle on an airplane.
Oh, sure.
Secure your own mask before assisting others. By securing her own mindset, first treating herself with grace, she is finally able to project that confidence and grace outward to her peers.
And she's going to need all that confidence because the ultimate test arrives shortly after.
Right, the international visitors.
Her company announces that a group of senior executives from an international branch are visiting, and Lily volunteers to act as their liaison and welcome them in English.
Which is the exact same high-pressure spotlight that caused her to melt down just months ago.
Exactly. And to be clear, the old voice doesn't just magically vanish. It pops up. What if I make mistakes?
But now she has the new voice to counter it.
Yes. The new voice says, mistakes are part of learning. You are ready. So she navigates the interactions all day, and inevitably she forgets a crucial word in the middle of a sentence.
But she doesn't freeze this time.
Nope. She just laughs it off, pivots, and keeps going. And at the end of the day, she is specifically complimented on her excellent English.
And she just smiled at the compliment, not because her English was suddenly flawless.
Because it wasn't. She made mistakes.
Right. She smiled because she finally believed in herself. Like her journal reflection said, her greatest improvement wasn't pronunciation or vocabulary, it was her mindset.
Exactly. Yeah. The technical skills finally had a solid foundation.
So, synthesizing all this for you listening right now, what's the core takeaway? Positive people don't have easier lives or fewer challenges.
No, they simply choose a different response. They replace, I can't do this, with how can I learn this?
And they replace I failed with what did this experience teach me?
It's all about how your brain processes the data of a failure.
Absolutely. So to help you start making that shift, we're issuing the specific challenge from the source to you.
Tomorrow morning, before checking the news, before looking at your phone.
Write down 3 positive, true sentences about yourself and read them aloud.
Embrace the awkwardness. Do it anyway.
Just see how it shifts your processing power for the day. And I want to leave you with one final lingering thought inspired by this deep dive.
What's that?
Well, if our internal monologue shapes our reality and our potential as powerfully as it did for Lily, what other areas of your life, maybe your career, your relationships, your hobbies, are currently being limited by a quiet, negative conversation you don't even realize you're having with yourself every single day?
That is the most important conversation you'll ever have.
Exactly. It's time to pay attention to what you're actually saying.